Hello and welcome to the University of Scranton's City Council interviews for the May 20, 2025 primary election. We're joined now by Todd Pousley, who is running to be one of the Democratic nominees for the City of Scranton Council. Thanks for being here, Todd.
Thank you, Brian.
This year, there will be 3 open seats for the Scranton City Council, where members serve 4-year terms. At the end of a 4-year term, what would you like to say you are able to accomplish for the residents of Scranton?
So, Brian, there are 3 things that are priorities for me. The first is ensuring that every family has access to quality housing that they can afford and be proud of. I want to make sure I'm helping more people purchase their first home in the city. I want to make sure that I'm holding absentee landlords accountable for maintaining their properties. And I want to help seniors stay in their homes and live there safely and comfortably for as long as possible. Second priority is safe, clean, and green neighborhoods. I want to continue to clean up vacant, abandoned properties. I want to keep litter under control. I want to make sure that our first responders have the resources that they need to keep us safe, especially children and seniors, so that they can feel comfortable walking around their neighborhoods. My third priority is community building and resident engagement. I want to make sure that every resident has an opportunity to take part in improving their community. Because what I've found over the years is that given the opportunity, given a way to help out, most people are willing to pitch in. This shouldn't just be about me as a city council member and what I can do, or what city council or the mayor and their administration can do for us, but also what every Scranton resident can do to improve their community.
Great, thank you. Scranton has seen rising concerns about housing affordability, aging infrastructure, and the availability of quality rental units. What specific policies would you propose to ensure access to safe, affordable housing for both renters and for home buyers?
Thanks for asking. This is, as I just mentioned, a top priority for me, a topic I'm very familiar with. I've been working in the housing and community development field for the past 7 years now. 3 things I would bring attention to. One, I think for increasing the supply of affordable housing for renters, I'd be interested in something called inclusionary zoning. What that is basically a way to mandate or incentivize private developers to incorporate affordable housing units into what might be market rate or high-end rental projects. There's both a carrot and a stick approach to this. I prefer the carrot approach rather than mandating that a private developer build X number of affordable units into their project. Instead, we could provide some incentives that would encourage them to do so. For example, we could reduce or waive permitting fees for their projects. We could allow them to increase density in a way that would allow them to build more units, on the property that they have. So in this way, we can encourage them to build in units that would look exactly like the other market rate and high-end units they might be building, but price them at a point where other families could afford to live there. On the home ownership side, in order to increase the availability of affordable housing for homeowners, I would look into shared equity housing approaches. These are ways that we can create permanently affordable housing so that a family, a low-income family, can access housing for the first time, but when they no longer need that housing, that can go to another family. The third thing that's really important to me is closing the racial homeownership gap. In the city of Scranton, there are 70% of white families own their own home, but for black families, that's just 21%, and Hispanic families, only 32% actually own their homes. So we can create first-generational homebuyer programs that are as successful as our first-time homebuyer program.
Recently, the federal government has taken efforts to drastically downsize or eliminate certain agencies and programs, some of which are likely to affect the city's own policies and programs. How do you plan to address these potential changes in funding and in support?
So it's unfortunate, really unfortunate, that a lot of the federal funding sources that the cities relied on in the past are not available or may not be available in the future. But here's where I would lean on my background and some of the grant management experience that I've had. It's Director of Community Development of NeighborWorks for the past 7 years. I've been directly responsible for raising over $6 million for a variety of infrastructure projects. Everything from home repairs to pedestrian safety improvements to park improvements. The majority of that funding that I've been able to raise has not been federal funding. It's been other sources of public and private funding, including some more unique programs, like a state tax credit program that provides an incentive for businesses to make a donation and contribute to these types of projects because they can receive a tax credit of up to 95% on the back end. So there's a monetary incentive for them to do that. I would love to explore opportunities like that, where we're not relying as heavily on federal or even state funding, but instead looking at what are some of the more creative ways that we could receive revenue donations through local businesses to support some of the work that we've done. There's been some great work done recently in just looking at refinancing bonds and things like that, that too can generate some new revenue so we're less reliant on the federal government.
Great, thank you. Over the past several years, Scranton residents have expressed concerns about the rising cost of utilities. This includes this year's UGI proposed rate increase ranging from 7.5 to 11% for natural gas customers. As a member of City Council, how would you address residents' concerns about rising utility costs?
So 3 things. One, I think as a City Council member, I'd need to push back on some of these significant rate increases and make sure that if there are going to be increases that they're reasonable, they're occasional, and they're justified. Again, we've seen recently how City Council, working with the mayor, along with other local legislators, can advocate on behalf of taxpayers, and that's something that I'd want to focus on. I think the second piece is making sure that Scranton residents are aware of the programs that are out there to assist them if they need help. So there's something, for example, called the Dollar Energy Fund, which is administered by Friends of the Poor, that would help income qualifying families afford to pay their utilities. So making sure that people who need the assistance know where they can go to get some help is really critical. And the third piece of that is actually helping to reduce families' energy costs to begin with. So I would make sure that we're properly funding programs like weatherization programs, for example, that help people upgrade their boilers and have more energy efficient ones, or insulate their homes, or repair their roofs and upgrade their windows so that they're actually consuming less energy and therefore have less energy costs.
As Scranton continues to grow and change, zoning policies play a key role in shaping the city's future. How would you approach updating the city's zoning code to support goals like economic development, housing availability, and neighborhood character, while ensuring that community voices are a part of that process?
This is another thing I'm very familiar with. I currently chair the city's planning commission. I was also a member of the planning commission just a couple of years ago when we recommended to City Council a completely updated, revamped zoning code. This was actually part of a decades-long process that began in 2006 called the Scranton Abington's Planning Association, which is a regional approach to zoning. The really important step that we took when we recommended and City Council later approved that new zoning code is that we made it easier to build different types of housing in more places in the city. We increased the number of mixed-use zones so that you can have a single-family home next to a duplex, next to a small business in a neighborhood. These are really positive things for the city of Scranton. This process, as I mentioned, was a long one, so there was community engagement built into that. I think unfortunately in this scenario, a lot of that community engagement happened years and years ago. So by the time all was said and done, the new zoning ordinance was actually ready to be recommended and approved by City Council. A lot of people had forgotten about that community engagement or hadn't had an opportunity to participate in that, and we didn't do enough later on to make sure they had some input. So I would make sure that any proposed changes to the zoning ordinance moving forward, that there'd be much more robust community engagement so we can get input from residents about what they'd like to see and what's important to them. I don't believe significant changes are needed to the zoning ordinance at this point, but again, my experience on the Planning Commission, there's a handful of smaller things that I think could be changed and should be changed. These include things like just making sure there's less impervious surface and properties and more trees planted when properties are being developed.
Thank you. Much of Scranton's infrastructure, from roads and sidewalks to water and sewer systems, are aging and in need of repair. Given budget constraints and competing priorities, how would you identify and fund the most urgent infrastructure needs while ensuring long-term resilience and access across neighborhoods?
Yeah, so it's no secret that infrastructure projects, whether that's housing, whether it's roads, sewer systems, they're costly, they're expensive, and they take a long time to complete. And there's only so much that we can do to control some of those costs. Again, this is where I would lean on my background. I would help find new and different ways, public-private funding, that we could use to tackle some of these really thorny issues. This is something I understand well because I've led these types of projects. I've also, figured out how to fund these types of projects. As far as how we prioritize the work that we're doing, again, this should go back to the residents, the people that live here, the people that own businesses here, and the people that are most affected by it. There are already some ways for them to participate through, for instance, the comprehensive planning process that happens every few years in the city, but by and large, those processes usually involve some public meetings, maybe a survey. A limited number of people have an opportunity to participate in that. I would make sure that any of the community engagement work that we're doing is much more inclusive and much more meaningful.
Finally, with the time that we have remaining, what else would you like voters to keep in mind when they head to the polls on Tuesday, May 20th?
Sure. Well, I just want to thank you, first of all, Brian, for this opportunity and the University of Scranton for organizing this. As I mentioned, I wasn't born and raised in Scranton. I came here to go to Marywood University, and I chose to stay after that. There are a couple of reasons I did that, but the most important was the people that I found here. After graduating in 2007, I bought a home in West Scranton, and I discovered just wonderful neighbors and a really strong neighborhood, which is something that I haven't experienced everywhere I've been, and I think it's really unique to the city. Over the course of my career, I took a career in marketing, changed that into career in community development because I wanted to improve this city, that I chose to make my home. I've got the experience now, having worked in the nonprofit and community development field for the past 7 years. I have a degree, a master's in public administration degree from Marywood that I believe both uniquely qualify me for a position on city council. And now I want to take that experience and that background and do what I can at city council to make our city better for everyone. So I do ask for your vote in the May 20th primary, but most importantly, regardless of who you vote for, get out and vote because elections matter and local elections matter.
Thank you, Todd. Todd Pousley is running to be one of the Democratic nominees for Scranton City Council. Please remember to vote on Tuesday, May 20th.